In this lecture, we are going to add colors to the palette. Currently, the user will not receive color recommendations. They're completely on their own. For the best editing experience possible, we should recommend colors that match our theme. Additional colors can be added through the theme.json file. In your editor, open this file. As you can probably guess, we can add colors through the Settings color property. Inside the color object, add a property called palette with an initial value of an empty array. Inside this array, we can insert objects for each color that we'd like to add. Let's try adding white. Each object will need 3 properties. The first property will be called slug. The slug is an ID for our color. As we've learned, WordPress will add colors to our theme, which we've disabled. Plugins are also capable of adding colors. We can help WordPress identify a color by assigning it an ID. This is to prevent clashing colors from other plugins. For this example, let's set the slug to U-White. We are prefixing our ID with the letter U, which is short for Udemy. That's the name of our theme. Whenever possible, we should avoid duplicating ID names. If our ID was called white, it's likely there may be another color with the same name. To prevent naming conflicts, it's recommended to prefix your ID names. For the rest of this course, we are going to apply prefixes. Let's move on to adding the color. The next property is called color. WordPress allows us to use various values for the color. The following values are supported: hex, RGB, RGBA, color names, keywords, HSL, HSLA. For this course, we are going to stick with hex codes and RGB. Back in our code, let's set the color to the following value: RGB 255, 255, 255. This value will set the color to white. We're almost finished. The last required property is called name. The name property will be a human-readable name of our color. Unlike the slug, this value will be presented to the user on the editor. Let's set the name to Udemy White. We've successfully added our first color. Let's try viewing the color palette in the browser. Awesome! Our color is available as a choice in the palette. You can hover your mouse over the color to view the name. A tooltip should appear with the value from the name property. It's time to add the rest of the colors. We're going to have over 15 colors. To prevent the course from becoming repetitive, check out the resource section of this lecture. You will find a link to a complete list of colors for our theme. Copy the entire list of colors. Next, head back to your editor. After the first color, paste in the list of colors. Make sure you add the comma after the first object. Feel free to play around with the colors. Each object is very similar to one another. Colors must have a slug, color, and name. Before testing our code, let's add one more color. Similar to the default palette property, we can add custom colors to a specific block. Let's expand on our example of the site title block. Inside the color object, add the palette property. The format is the same as before. Let's quickly add the primary color to the palette. Inside the array, add an object with a property called slug. The slug will be set to UPrimary. Next, add the color property. Let's try using a hex code. The value for this color will be the following: #EF4444. Lastly, the name property will be set to Udemy Primary. If our assumptions are correct, this color should only be available to the site title block. Let's try viewing the color palette on the Global Style sidebar. If you can view the complete list of colors, You've successfully added a custom palette for your theme. To verify the colors, you can hover your mouse over the colors for the tooltip. The names should reflect the names in the theme.json file. Let's try viewing the color palette for the site title block. The color palette from this block will completely override the global palette. This behavior is important to understand. WordPress will prioritize block-specific settings over global settings. By adding a custom color palette for a block, the global palette will not be provided or merged. So, that's how colors are added to a theme. In the next lecture, let's continue our discussion of colors.